Hey, everybody. It has been said that word of mouth marketing is one of the most powerful strategies a business can use. But is it? And if it is so powerful, how can a business use it to create a constant flow of leads into their business? There's lots of examples of big brands using word of mouth marketing, but finding good examples of local businesses who are doing it well are much harder to find. Yet many talk about it as if it's a silver bullet for their business from a marketing perspective, and they don't need to invest in any other marketing. In this podcast, we'll explore what is word of mouth marketing, why it's so powerful, common word of mouth marketing myths, and how businesses can strategically leverage word of mouth marketing as part of their marketing plan. I'm joined by our amazing marketing guides, Ken, Paul, and Jen. And I'm actually really excited about this topic. I think it's an important topic, and I look forward to the wisdom that you guys bring to the table. So let's dive in. Jen, what is word of mouth marketing?
Word of mouth marketing. Well, I'm going to take it a little bit literal for word of mouth marketing. So we all know word of mouth. So what people say about their experience with a business, with a brand, with an event. So I think I'm looking around here. We probably all know that commercial, right? You tell two friends and you tell two friends and you tell two friends from before, for I guess several decades ago. But it's the kind of thing where a customer has an experience. Let's focus on the good for a second, with your brand, with your service, with your company, and is talking about it, talking about their experience to their loved ones, their colleagues, their own network, about what it was like to do business with you, what their experience was with that product or that service. So it's their point of view on there. Positive versus negative word of mouth. I mean, like we've all seen and all experienced too, negative word of mouth seems to travel so much farther and so much faster, and seems to sometimes carry a lot more weight. Don't visit that business, don't use that brand, don't use this service. And horror stories always kind of, pique our interest and whatnot, and scare us away. So word of mouth marketing really is your customer's experience with your brand or your service or your company, and what they have to say about it, whether or not it's what you want to hear, or it's the way, whether or not it's the way that you would describe your product or service, even if it is a positive thing.
And I'm assuming that, or traditionally, this was when we were gathered around a water cooler at work, or we were meeting up with family or friends over dinner. That's where these types of interactions would happen a lot. Is there also an online component to this, Jen?
Well, there is an online component about this. I mean, we were talking about this earlier about the online reviews and whatnot, but even, so word of mouth. So before the online reviews, so even if it is something through email, something through text, something through, FaceTime or whatever, it's someone's opinion of their experience with a product or service. Online reviews and anything that can be posted as someone's opinion can count as word of mouth marketing. That's where, like, personally, we're talking about this. I get that. That's a little bit fuzzy for me, but it still matters. It still weighs in. People do look at online reviews in droves to really understand, is this the product or the service for me? What's been good about it? What's been bad about it? And having said that about the bad reviews or negative reviews, sometimes the negative reviews can actually help people make a purchase. So, for example, this shoe is not good for this activity. Oh, okay, no problem. I'm not doing that activity. I'm going to go ahead and buy the shoes. So it's really an extra channel out there, commenting and either for good or for bad, giving your product or service, a vote of confidence or a vote against it.
Yeah. One of the things I've seen locally with clients of mine, but also just in my town, is that people will always post in it. It seems to be a Facebook thing, in search of, or ISO, right? In search of an electrician to put in pot lights, in search of a dentist for my family and my kids, in search of, an appliance repair person, right? And one of the interesting nuances I've seen to that is the tribe that you have can gather around you. And even though it's virtual word of mouth, I have been amazed, even with an electrician that's a client of mine. I'm amazed at how much goodwill is given as far as promoting that business, because he's just done a fantastic job of generating a lot of great satisfied clients, and they're very vocal about it, and it's really neat to see. And then on the alternative, you have people giving negative comments about other people, and it's a fascinating new world of word of mouth.
Well, yeah, I mean, there are even specific Facebook groups that are set up. In this area, there's this thing called I Know a Guy or I Know a Gal. And, people will go post there, and then, it has, I don't know, several thousand, over 10,000, I think, people who've subscribed to this group or are members of this group, that talk about the businesses that they would recommend. So, I mean, forums, if there are still forums that are used out there, and which could be, product specific, they could be interest specific. Another thing that jumps to my mind is, in the hyper polarized political world we live in, a lot of people are using online groups to mobilize to say, don't buy from this company, or, make sure you buy from this company because our group believes in their values, or we absolutely disagree with their values, and so don't buy from them. And that's all done through online groups, and that's still, to me, is word of mouth marketing.
And Ken, I think you're jumping into some of what my next question for you was going to be is word of mouth marketing as powerful as some say it is? And if so, what makes it powerful?
Yeah. So before I answer that, I want to go back to what Jen was talking about. You tell two people, and then they tell two people, and then they tell two people. Well, my first thought of that is, wow, what a fast way to lose the message. Because I think about that exercise we all did, where you whisper you tell the secret, to the next person down, and how does it morph after it gets through even one or two people, but by the time it gets through 10 people, it's crazy. And it doesn't even you can't even recognize it oftentimes back to the original message. So if you want to lose control of your message as a business, only relying on word of mouth marketing is really a major risk that you could do that. Now, if you've got an army of people who have become your referral champions, and they're willing to talk and share, and I mean, it really doesn't get any better than that. But again, I'm concerned about message control. Are you going to be getting the ideal client for your business if you rely on word of mouth marketing? Just because I know a bunch of people, are they the right people for them to be doing business with you from your perspective? I mean, I'm sure you appreciate the referrals, but not every customer is equal. At least it shouldn't be. And so I think you lose control of your ideal customers, unless you spend a lot of time training, people on how you want them to refer you through the word of mouth program. There are statistics. I mean, people tend to trust people that they know, like, and trust, friends and family members, way higher. And so if you get a recommendation, a word of mouth recommendation from a friend or a family member, maybe a coworker, that carries a tremendous amount of weight. And that's probably the most trusted, kind of a referral that you could get from any source. The next best thing is online reviews and online recommendations. Now, if you're a part of the big Facebook groups, like I talked about, like the I Know a Guy, I don't know those people. I'm a member of a group with them, and there are over 10,000 people. I don't know most of those people. So if I get a referral, is that any good or any better than research I could do by going online and researching Yelp or Google or any number of niche sites that have reviews about businesses in different practices or industries. But the other thing to keep in mind is people tend to not trust advertising, and it's pretty easy to recognize advertising. Facebook does its best to disguise its advertising, by the way it just plops it right into the news feed, and it's just part of your scroll, and you see all this stuff. I think now most people probably have been using these platforms long enough to where they can see the word sponsor or sponsored, so they start to recognize that. But still, the way it's disguised in your news feed, and I think this is one of the bigger problems we have with social media as a society is what can you believe and trust, and what shouldn't you? And it's really easy to get a lot of that crap cluttered into your news feed. One, and then the other thing is you might get in an echo chamber where, based on the makeup of your friends and the people who are sharing content that's showing up on your news feed, maybe it's not giving you all the information you need to be making good decisions. So while I'm a huge fan of online reviews, I'm gonna trust online reviews more than anything else. In my opinion, I mean, sure, I'm going to talk to friends and family, and if they've had a great experience, yeah, but I'm not going to stop there. I'm going to go check out the online reviews. I want to see how responsive the business is. I want to see, are they responding and commenting and thanking people or addressing people or resolving problems when people have a bad review. That's going to tell me a lot about the business, as well as I'm going to check out their website and see if their website looks like it's professional and coherent and aligns with solving the problem that I have. So I think everybody is different. A lot of people that I talk to, especially a lot of really smaller businesses, they rely on word of mouth marketing. Our guest last week, Virginia Muskies, talked about, the power of referrals and having a referral system, and the fact that I think it's like only like 92% of small businesses don't have a plan.
Mhm.
I don't care what you do with marketing. You have to have a plan. And if your plan is to leverage word of mouth marketing, have a plan and do it and execute it and try to control it as much as you can from a messaging perspective, problems that you solve, and training people to give you recommendations and referrals for your ideal clients.
And it's interesting what you said there, Ken, because you were, in essence, when you were using yourself as an example, which I don't think is an out there example. I think research attests to how the buyer's journey has radically changed over the last 10 years. And that, in the marketing world, we always used to have really nice straight line buyer's journeys. Like, the person comes in here at the top of the funnel and they'll do this action and then they'll move to this action, and magically they'll become a customer. And the more recent buyer's journeys are more like a diagram of choose your own adventure, where you come to a point and they're like, do I go this way, or this way? And what you were talking about, where you might ask someone, you might ask online for a referral for this type of service you're looking for, but then most people do not stop there. Most people, like some people that are a little bit more old school, might pick up the phone right then and say, hey, can you help me with this? But a lot of people, because we're very online research oriented people now, will Google them. What comes up in a Google search? Of course, their website, their Google My Business profile, their reviews, and their social profiles. And you'll start to dig in and because we all want to make a decision for ourselves, right? So it's interesting that you brought up that change in the buyer's journey. I think it's a really relevant point in this discussion.
Well, another thing that's really important about this is speed of response. I mean, if you get that, if somebody acts on the word of mouth referral, like you mentioned, the old school kind of person who's just immediately going to pick up the phone and call, if they pick up the phone and call and you don't answer and you don't call them back, within a couple of days or even a couple of hours, depending on what the problem is that they have, you've lost all credibility that word of mouth referral gave you.
Yeah.
And they're going to go on to the next customer. I mean, to the next business that can solve their problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That leads nicely into my question for Paul. Paul, what are some common examples of good word of mouth marketing that you've come across?
Well, it's kind of been answered, or we've talked about it, that what's happened is it has gone online. You still have the traditional word of mouth marketing, face-to-face conversations, but social media shout outs and a like isn't necessarily a recommendation on social media. But one thing we haven't talked about is video, where people will do the whole unboxing thing in the video reviews. That's a great word of mouth type of marketing. And it's like I said, it's been mentioned, but people do trust other people. People don't have a lot of faith in brands right now, but they do trust other people. They trust their friends, and they do trust reviews. I think it was HubSpot did an article or a study a while back that something like 91% of people will research a company and look at the reviews, and a positive review will definitely influence their buying decision. So will negative reviews, but like Jen said, negative reviews tend to carry more weight, because if you piss somebody off, they're going to tell the world. But if they like what you did, it's like, okay, I had a great experience, but it's not as much of a motivator as being ripped off, so to speak. So you do have to go out and ask people for those reviews, because they do work. People do look at them. They do trust reviews, because like Ken said, with the whole advertising, is it people know if you're paying for an ad, you're paying for that. It's paid. Whereas word of mouth, people are doing that. They're not getting paid to do that. And that's, I think, is why people trust reviews and referrals from friends and family so much. Well, first of all, I know they're friends and family, but they're not getting paid for that. So it must have been a good experience.
But now wait a minute. I mean, I don't think that we can't assume that they're not being paid. I think about the world of Instagram influencers.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, that's an influencer.
disguised
That's why I
intentionally.
didn't mention influencers.
Yeah, but it's disguised to be a substitute for word of mouth marketing. So I think you have to be careful with, you can't just assume. I mean, obviously, if it's a friend or family member, you're probably going to have a high degree of confidence that they're not being paid for a referral. But even then, I mean, a lot of times businesses will put in place, hey, you refer a friend, I'll give you a $25 gift card, kind of a program. So there is a method of payment.
Yeah, but would you, if I had a bad experience with a business, I don't care what they try to bribe me with, I'm not going to refer them.
Well, right, yeah.
But
Unless
and
it
yeah,
was
you
really
do
bad,
have to
and
be,
then you're going to try to refer them to everybody so you can maximize your referral dollars.
but you always have to be careful. But yes, they can pay some company in India to go write a bunch of fake reviews, but those are usually fairly obvious. I don't know, maybe I'm different, but you can usually pick those out. And Google claims that they're cracking down on that, and I think to some
Yeah.
degree they have. But
Yeah.
Google also claims that they don't publish, or they ignore duplicate content, but they seem to love to rank stolen content.
One of the things you said there, Paul, made me really think about I think Ken mentioned it, where it's not just about when you get a negative review, it's how you respond to the review. And our intelligence as online community civilians, right, is that I think we have when there's statistics that back up that even if you were to get a negative review as a business, don't lose your mind over it. Respond to it appropriately. Try to resolve the issue publicly and try to move it offline as quickly as you can, right? That's kind of the model for how you respond to negative reviews. But as a consumer, when I'm looking for a hotel and I look through the reviews on Expedia or something like that, Travelocity, I see all these reviews and it gives me an overall rating and I'm like, oh, good. Like it's got a pretty good rating. But then I look at the highest reviews, the best ones, and then I look at the lowest reviews. And I don't think I'm alone in this process. I think a lot of people do it. And when I look at the bad reviews, a lot of times what I'm mentally doing is looking at, are these reasonable people? Because a lot of times the negative reviews are highly unreasonable. And so even the response of the business to highly unreasonable negative reviews tells me something about the business, but it also helps in my mind to kind of level the playing field a bit and say, you know, if you've ever been in business, there's highly unreasonable people occasionally that we run across, and it's not out of, you know, it's not out of the possibilities in this world that, you know, they got a negative review that isn't even fair to the business, right? So I think we become more savvy as consumers to how to even digest reviews. And yes, the trust has to be there with the review platform and how they take in the reviews. And I think, you know, all the statistics show that we actually as consumers do trust these review platforms, especially Google, because Google has made big efforts in it. And, you know, and you can spot the spammy ones pretty easily.
Bad reviews aren't the end of the world. And if, like you said, you have to read them, that brings up a good point. A while back, I was doing some research on a product and I was reading some of the bad reviews. And one of them, they gave them 1-star review. But if you read the review, they were bitching about, they did exactly what the user manual said you should not do. And so they wrote a bad review about it. It's like, okay, you're an idiot. They say do not do this, so that's what you did, and then you write a negative review. And I think people have gotten smart, like you said. I think people have gotten smart enough to recognize a lot of that.
Yeah, there's that, and then you can tell too, maybe if it's a restaurant or a hotel or kind of like a single interaction. If it was a bad day, you know, not a systematic problem with the product or service, so that counts too. But I do that too, you know. I go 5-star and then 1-star. Like, what's so bad about this, right?
Yeah. Jen, as much as people talk about how great word of mouth marketing is, what are some myths about it?
Well, I think some myths about it is that it just happens, right? Like everybody's talking about this restaurant or this product or whatever. It must be so amazing. But behind the scenes, it takes a lot of effort to have that happen in sync, whether it is with the influencers or whether it is with, let's just say, regular people. Asking for the reviews, asking here's how a good way to refer us. Oftentimes you got to put those kind of words or that kind of thinking in someone's head. I know from, I think they do this at BNI. Every time I was a guest there, they did this. And I know they do this at a couple of other associations I belong to. And when you have your time to pitch your company or what you do, you're always phrasing the end of it, you know, and a good referral for me would be somebody or a business who, because if you leave it up to somebody to assume or everybody to assume that they know who would be a good client for you, that can go off the rails really quickly. Like, I don't know. I mean, we're all marketing consultants here, you know. I'm sure people are really like, you do logos, right? Like, I know we do much more than that, right? But you got to train people how to know, you know, what to say. So there is also another thing about no control. So like once it goes out to the public, once you give somebody the opportunity to talk about the experience that they had with your product or service, you can give them talking points till the cows come home, but they still may, you know, put their own spin on it or ignore what you have to say and say it their own way. So there's there is no control on that as well. And in going back to equipping people to refer you, I mean, it's nice to think that everybody just will. But if we think a little bit about online reviews, even though somebody might want to leave a review, it can be confusing where to go, how to say it, what to say besides, oh, it was a great experience. Let's just stick with the positive. So you really have to almost sort of draft out, ideally, this is what you would say, this is when you'd say it, this is how you type it, this is, the audience we're looking for. And then I think you have to just let it go and just know that it's one of those channels that you don't have control over.
Yeah. One of the things that we would be remiss if we didn't say this on this podcast is that all word of mouth, all marketing relies on you as a business owner delivering good quality service or products, right? Like that should go unsaid, but I think it's important that we do say that, because nobody's going to talk about you in a positive manner if you're not doing a good job. And nobody, know about amount of marketing can actually overcome bad service, right? You're just going to have the leakiest bucket in the world if you're constantly filling it up with leads and they're just falling out because of all your bad reviews. So yeah, and that point you said about the passive approach to word of mouth that a lot of businesses, especially local businesses, seem to take, as opposed to what Ken talked about, having a plan and being proactive. Like, I think one of the biggest myths out there related to word of mouth marketing is that it does just happen. That if you're in business long enough, people are just going to talk about you, and you'll get a continuous flood of new leads or patients or whatever it is. And that's not true. And I think today we as marketing guides are standing up for that truth. We're saying, you got to be proactive. You got to actually do some work and not just deliver great service.
Well, it takes the effort, and it's not just unique to word of mouth marketing. I mean, think about, in our corner of the world, events and whatnot are opening up more and more. How many times have you, gone to an event and, oh, I didn't really meet anybody? Well, what have you done to book the appointments to make sure you meet somebody? Same with trade shows. We do a lot of pre-COVID, hopefully post-COVID, we'll do a lot of trade show work. And one of the things we do is like, okay, what's the strategy for booking appointments? And it's not just booking appointments with the salespeople, everybody in the booth. You got to, you can't come home from the trade show going, oh, I wish I could have, relying on kismet to meet that, next great client or next great opportunity. You got to leave room for that too, but you got to have a plan on how this is going to work for you. Same thing with social. You can't just put it up there and expect, 100,000 people to share it. There's a lot of planning and effort that goes along behind virtually every marketing channel you're going to use.
Yeah.
So it's all work. I'm sorry to say, it's all work. It's no magic.
It either is your work as a business, right? Or you need to invest in it with somebody who will do the work for you, or hire someone, right? Like it doesn't just happen by magic, as much as magic would be nice.
Yeah, it would be nice.
Ken, I think I alluded to this, and hopefully I didn't take away some of your thunder in this question. But sometimes businesses use word of mouth marketing as a reason for not marketing at all in any way, because they say it's free, it works. It's, we've built our business up to this point on word of mouth marketing. But from my perspective, as I was just sharing, that's not true in most cases. And in most cases, it's hurting the business if you look at it from a competitive landscape. Why can you kind of respond to why this seems to be such a prevalent feeling with people that have that viewpoint, and why it's actually a big problem for their business?
Yeah, a couple of thoughts there. One is, as a matter of fact, I was just talking to a business within the last couple of days, and they told me actually a couple of businesses have told me they flat out rely on word of mouth marketing. They don't need to do anything else. They're as busy as they possibly can be and want to be. And there are those businesses that are out there. One of them flat out said, I don't need to do anything else. The other said, but having said that, I know I need to have a professional website. I know I need to have a good presence on Instagram, and it made sense for what they do as a business. So they're still doing things beyond just, I mean, but the 90% or more of the business, they don't rely on being found by search, but they do recognize that people are going to investigate them and check them out on social media and on their website to make sure that they're a real legitimate business. Um, so they've at least invested in being professional in those two channels, which is good. Um, Honestly, there are businesses. I can think of several that I meet. I mean, BNI is all they need. I mean, they build the referral network and work the word of mouth process to a T. They're experts at it. They visit other chapters. So if the chapter that they're in isn't big enough, they go to other chapters where there's not a competing business. They make those relationships. It fills up their pipeline, and they're as happy as they can be. Most of the time, they do want to go get good quality Google reviews. So at least they're taking that step. But I think it comes down to the capacity of your business and the desire for how do you want to grow your business? Do you want to just have a sustainable business that you've already been able to build up and establish, and you're fortunate enough to just live off of word of mouth marketing, or building referral partner channels, where you get all your business from like 5 general contractors. They feed you all the business you could ever want. Maybe that's all you need, and just hope that one of those 5 doesn't go out of business or decide, I think I'm going to add another contractor to the mix and see what they can do for me, and start to cut you out. You have no other plan in place if you're only relying on word of mouth marketing. So can it be sufficient? Absolutely. I think, again, I would recommend people go and listen to our podcast from last week with Virginia, because I think she really specializes in working with businesses to create a plan to nail referral marketing first. And there are certain categories of businesses and certain types of businesses that could be by far and away the best thing that you can do. But it's an investment still. You have to invest your time. You have to create messages. You have to have the assets in place. So it's not literally just expecting that people are out of the goodwill and friendliness are going to go out and talk about your business all the time to generate the business that you need. Um, Most businesses, I think I saw a statistic that it's like only 33% of businesses, even today, only 33% of businesses have a strategy to go get more online reviews. That's ridiculous. Seriously, listeners and viewers, how do you buy? Do you not read online reviews? If you read online reviews, get a review process system and tool set in place. Please. It's the best thing you can ever do for your business. I don't know. I mean, I'm sympathetic to the really small businesses. I don't want to sell them anything that doesn't make sense for them. And, many times, good for you. If you can rely on word of mouth marketing and that's all you need. And I think there are businesses that can survive on this. My challenge to you is, by doing that, are you charging what you should be charging for your products or services? Or do you do it and do you get that business ultimately because you're a discount solution? And I think most word of mouth marketing companies, if that's all they rely on, they don't have a lot else to prop them up in terms of the value that they add to the customers. And when you think about the psychology of how people buy, the story brand, I'm going to go back to it again. External, internal, philosophical problems. External problem, that's what's going to motivate them to start to look. I've got a hole in my roof, my tooth aches, something like that. But who I buy from is going to be based on my own internal fears and pains and needs that I may not readily express, but I need to see that in some way communicated when I'm on my buyer's journey. And people buy from the people that they buy from because of the internal problems and how you express that you solve those problems. And word of mouth marketing doesn't do a whole lot for you there.
Yeah. Yeah. Two things that come to mind when you were talking, Ken, is one is that um, some business owners, I agree with you. Like there are some businesses, especially when you're thinking about, some small lifestyle coaches, whatever it is, even those, I can't see them only doing word of mouth marketing because of the competition. So two things that came to mind was one is, as business owners, we only fool ourselves if we think we're in a bubble and that whatever was yesterday and even for the past 20 years is what's going to happen in the future, right? Like that's not true. And you need to think about what the next generation's buying habits are like, because the next generation are your customers of tomorrow, right? So you need to think about that, unless you're retiring in a year and then, keep doing what you're doing and go out in the sunset. But the other part I would say to that is valuation. So because we serve the dental and orthodontic world a fair bit, one of the things those guys, like even when they get into business, they know they're going to sell their business. Like that's always in the plan, is I'm either going to retire and keep my practice running, or I'm going to sell it for a huge profit. And part of that is being able to prove that you can not just effectively keep leads coming in on a continuous basis when you sell the practice, but that you have a way to turn that lever up, turn the lever down, right? Gives you controls. And for somebody that is only thinking word of mouth marketing, you have none of those controls. It certainly shows the quality of your business, which will help your valuation. But imagine if you were to add the next layer of, but this is how we market ourselves to the community. And if you were to invest, twice as much, you get twice as much return on investment. And that's what investors want to see, right?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I mean, a lot of businesses don't even think about what value can they build in their business. It's just like, okay, when I'm done, I'm done. I'm just going to shut it down. I mean, you're missing a lot of income and revenue that you can and probably should be paid. So it's amazing to me.
Yeah. Paul, is word of mouth marketing equally relevant for B2B businesses, business to business businesses, and business to consumer businesses?
Yeah, absolutely it is. You could almost say it may even be more important for business to business, because that every B2B consumer is a B2C consumer first. So they know people, and they may know a decision maker in a B2B business that you would not otherwise have access to. So, people talk, they talk to each other. And a lot of these, I was doing some research. I can't remember where I found this, but it's the ABM Summit, whatever that means. I didn't look into it, but they said that, let's see, up in B2B, 91%, up to 91% of every sale is influenced by word of mouth in some way. That's a lot. Now, they didn't dive too deep into that, I didn't dive too deep into it, but that if that's true, that can make or break your marketing. So B2B isn't like my area of expertise, but yeah, from what I've read, I would say it's definitely important. I'm trying to find, let's see here. they talk about volunteer marketers, but yeah, that's basically what they were saying, is that they can give you access to people that you wouldn't otherwise have access to. Was the gist of that study.
Yep. And I don't know if you guys have had this experience, because I certainly, much of my career was actually in B2B marketing. But even just looking at it from me as a buyer of services or products in the business world, the reviews you would find related to, say we were buying a $100,000 per year marketing automation tool. Of course, we would Google it. Of course, we would look at trade journals and that kind of stuff. But we have our own community in the marketing world, right? So we would reach out to our friends and we would say, hey, I heard you were killing it on, marketing automation in your business. Tell me what you guys are using and what your experience has been. Or, hey, I heard you were using this tool. Tell me what it was like. Or, hey, I heard you were using this automation consulting business to help you get up to speed. What was your experience like? And so that word of mouth was so powerful to us, because all of us are looking for shortcuts so we don't have to make the mistakes that other people are making. And I would even venture to say that in the business to business world, the fallout of making a bad business decision are monetarily and career wise so big that you really do value the input of trusted advisors and trusted people to share with you. I know you guys have been in all sorts of different industries and experiences, but have you found that as well?
Yeah, I've also found where those colleagues won't share because it's a strategic advantage.
I was just going to get into that. I was going to say, well, what do you do when your clients or your customers say, I use your product or service and you make me look good, or you make me, help us a lot. And we don't want to let on that we're using this because we want to, you're our best kept secret. So it puts you in a really difficult position, right? Because your product or service is really helping that company, and yet they're like, we're not saying a word about you. So what do you do then? That's not rhetorical. I'm really asking.
Yeah. No,
I haven't come up with a solution. I mean, it's it's very flattering, but on the other hand, you're like, well, how do we deal
I think
with that?
I think the best solution to that is a precursor to any relationship. And I don't do this extremely well, but it's actually building it into your agreements with people, right? Where as people are going through their buying decision, and we're talking, for the audience, we're talking specifically about marketing consultants and marketing agencies, where, usually you have kind of a handful of clients. You're not having hundreds of clients usually. And so it's really, how do you leverage those relationships? And one of the best pieces of advice I've heard is that you build it into your agreement. So not only are we consulting and advising our clients that they need to proactively generate online reviews and testimonials, but that's what we'll be asking them for as well, because we require it in order to continue to grow our business. But yeah, I mean, if they refuse, there's nothing you can do, right, Jen? It's
I guess you
walk away.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've been on both sides. We have never walked away from that. There has always been a reason that we could see from the client's point of view, like, I see. We'll just come along and be your best kept secret, right? So that's it. That's what we've done, and we've done that. I've done that with nimble quotes. People have said, I'm not saying a word. You make me look good, the whole bit. Very flattering, very hard to capitalize on that. And then when we've done some B2B work with like very large marketing teams, they're like, you can speak. If you're talking to a potential client, you can speak about doing work for us. It can't appear in any of your case studies, nothing printed, nothing, So, and because of the opportunities have been great, I've said, okay, we'll agree to that. But I mean, and I don't regret those decisions, but it's still, it's tough, right? It's tough.
Yeah. I guess my thought is, get them on camera and do like one of those anonymous videos like you see on shows.
Change the voice.
disguise their voice, and hope that because for one, I mean, that's going to catch people's attention and they're going to listen to it. And hopefully they listen to the words that the person says, even if they can't attribute it back, to a particular company.
Yeah.
So maybe you can still get some usable content that way.
Yeah. Or if anyone listening has an idea, I'm all ears.
I love that idea.
This guy
Ken.
needs some guidance.
I love Ken's idea. Like, it would be so funny that people it would get noticed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We kidnapped this client and took them to a safe house because they wouldn't give us a testimonial. And so to protect their business and their identity, we've altered their voice and their
they're all backlit, like witness protection. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love it.
Oh dear.
Jen, how can a business incorporate word of mouth marketing into their marketing plan?
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about the importance of having a plan, but how can they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think first of all, just knowing about it, right? That whatever channel you're taking, it has to go the extra mile with asking for the reviews, teaching your clients how to refer you, teaching them, it doesn't have to be so, well, I mean, the plan has to be formal, but when you're asking, it can also be like, if you hear people talking about this pain, that's a good referral for us. If you hear talking about that pain, that would be a good referral for us. So sometimes it doesn't have to be in such formal speak, but with every, as you go through your marketing plan, every channel that you're going to promote on, you need to be incorporating how does someone pass on, oh, this is a good company. This is an excellent company if you need ABC, that kind of thing. So be thinking about it. And as well, like not in your marketing plan, but just realize that all this good PR or good reviews, good word of mouth, it's part of a plan. It doesn't just happen, and you gotta seed the fire to make it happen.
Yeah. Ken talked about it earlier, and I think you mentioned it as well, Jen. Just how there's a networking component can be extremely positive from a word of mouth marketing standpoint. And of course, for something like that, whether you're a one person show, whether you have multiple salespeople, like you have to plan for that, because there are costs associated with that. There's time away from work. There's, or not time away from work, but time away from the office to do the networking. And then membership fees and that kind of stuff, which you would have to include in a plan to be, thoughtful about that. And then if it is multiple people in your business doing this, you would have to have, a way to create accountability and measurement and all that kind of stuff too.
Yes, you would.
Like it's a good investment for us. So wow, crickets there. So for example, that's okay. Maybe I wasn't clear either. So as an example of that, one of the very best people I've ever seen leverage BNI in my circle of friends, she has been a spreadsheet user, and she tracks everything. Now there's apps and stuff like that help with BNI. But she has tracked from day one when she entered that chapter. She knows every visitor she's invited for the last 8 years, I think. She knows every referral she's given, every referral she's got, and the value associated with those. So she can actually say, this is my return on investment for my membership fee, for the time I put into this. And so that's what I was meaning, was the ability to be able to track back, is, if you possibly can, your networking efforts or your word of mouth efforts, because otherwise maybe you're burning a lot of time, which is costing you a lot of money.
Yeah, exactly.
Ken, what tips do you have for businesses using that are thinking about using or would like to use or have been using word of mouth? What tips would you give them?
First thing I would say is you should focus on developing a clear message that focuses on the problem you solve for the ideal client that you serve. StoryBrand calls it a one-liner, and it's made up of 3 components. So it's talking about the pain of your ideal client. It's talking about your product and how your product can deliver results that leads to, to help solve that problem. And if you create something like that, hammer it home over and over and over again. Be consistent with it. Train people, train everybody in your company to know what it is. To the extent that you can, put it on your invoices, put it on your business cards, so that when people are referring you, if they don't remember that one liner, it's on your business card if they hand out the business card, when they're talking to somebody. So I think messaging is critical, because again, if you just let word of mouth marketing happen, you might not like all of the referrals you get. And one of the worst things that you have to do is turn away somebody when a trusted customer or client of yours gave you a referral and you have to turn them away. That's an awkward situation. So I think doing the prep work and doing your homework is really important. Creating a plan, and part of that plan, I think, should be having a strategy to go get really strong online reviews and legitimate, real online reviews on whatever review platforms make sense for your business. Google's a no-brainer for most businesses. But if you're not truly a local business, there are other review platforms that are out there. If you sell products through Amazon, get Amazon reviews. If you're an attorney, maybe you want to think about, a site like Avo, or a realtor. There are a whole series of review sites, Zillow and Realtor.com and places like that. But have a plan and execute on the plan. Don't just let it happen.
Good advice. Good advice.
And Paul, can I add another thing?
Yeah, of course you can. There's still time, Ken.
All right. Have a backup. So if we've learned anything over the last 2.5 years, it's that you've got to be nimble and you've got to have contingencies. And so a lot of restaurants and a lot of brick and mortar businesses rely on word of mouth marketing. And they struggled because of the situation we all found ourselves in with COVID. They did not have a backup plan to capture email addresses or cell phones so that they could do a customer reactivation campaign and go back and ask their good customers who would want to help them anyway, hey, come back and buy from us. Hey, we're still open. Hey, if you're not comfortable dining in, did you know we have carry-out options available? We'll even bring it out to your car so you don't have to come in. Have a backup plan. Word of mouth marketing, like we've talked about, it can be great, but it's a single point of failure. If there's a catastrophic situation, if you serve older clientele, and those clientele either move away or die, what do you have? Like you talked about earlier, Ian, you got to figure out, how are you going to get people based on the changing dynamics of how people are buying? So I would say it's not a wise decision for most businesses to just have that as the one thing that they rely on.
Your point about contingencies and using COVID as an example, I can't imagine how hard that would have been for companies that did rely totally on word of mouth, like a passive approach to word of mouth.
Yeah.
Because how much fewer were people actually getting together in the context of meeting together?
Absolutely.
Even the venue was gone, right?
Yeah.
It's a really good point, Ken.
Thank you.
Paul, I alluded to this in talking about B&I specifically, but there's other aspects of this. Are there ways to measure word of mouth marketing? And if so, how would companies track and measure success in this area?
It's not easy, because in the digital world that we live in, if anything digital can be tracked, you don't have that with word of mouth. And like you said, you alluded to B&I. That's a really good, because if you get a referral from B&I, obviously that's word of mouth. That's kind of what B&I is. Traditionally, the advice has been talk to your customers. and ask them, how did you hear about us? But that can be kind of iffy as well. If you're doing, Ken talked about database reactivation programs. If you're doing that, you can put a referral link in there, and that would help you track it. If you do have some kind of referral program, yeah, you can have a landing page with a link or a QR code, but that you're asking a lot of your referral partners in that aspect, and that's a lot of work for something that that is not that easy to track. And that's kind of the elephant in the room, is that every business is influenced by word of mouth marketing. Every business is. But back to your question, is how do you track that? And it's not easy, because it is almost off the grid, so to speak. So yeah, talk to your customers. If you're doing a database reactivation, put a referral link in there. But yeah, unfortunately, there is no real good. It's not like you can use a pixel to track word of mouth marketing. You just can't do it. So you can talk to your customers, but
Yeah.
it's very difficult to track.
Well, and the things that you talked about are even macro level tracking. I mean, you can see how many people went to a website if you gave them a custom landing page to go to, or you gave them a referral link. One of the cool things is we actually have a text message marketing program that generates a unique referral link for every person who refers you. So it actually gives you the granularity to track who your top referrers are. And if you want to create a reward system for them, you can, or recognize them, even if it's just to call them and thank them. You can actually have that level of tracking, but that didn't happen by chance. And you probably need to have a tool set that, is designed to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. This has been great. I think we could probably do a whole program on developing and using referral programs, because that's kind of the next layer, that Paul alluded to there. But we've covered this topic really well. Thank you, guides, for sharing your wisdom and your experience. And thank you, listeners, watchers, for joining us today for this marketing topic. If this has been helpful to you, please share the wealth with others by telling them about this podcast, and we'll see you next week.